You ever stand in your backyard, thinking it's just another ordinary morning, and realize, in the blink of an eye, you're about to start a war? Yeah, that happened. That's how it started for me. Just a pile of dry leaves pressed up against my old fence, right there in the easement, barely a few inches into shared property, but in Central California, where every October smells like a tinderbox and fire season is less a suggestion than a living, breathing threat. Well, you start paying attention. Retired firefighter or not, some instincts don't ever quit, the way the wind carries. A memory of smoke, the uneasy prickle up your arms, that sixth sense whispering, don't look away. So, there I am, fixing a warped board, trying not to think about the HOA or Karen. Yes, that Karen, will get there, when I catch a whiff of scorched leaves. Not a full-on fire, but enough to make me drop my hammer and walk the fence line. There it was, a mound of oak and sycamore. Leaves, all bunched up against my fence, with just enough blackened twigs and curled bits to prove someone had been burning, and one stubborn ember still doing its best to stay alive. My pulse picked up. By city ordinance, that strip is supposed to stay clear. It's a fire break. The HOA has rules for this, especially since the brush fire 3 years ago that chewed up 6 houses. Just 2 neighborhoods over. But here it was, already violated, and I could have put money on who did it. Karen, 2 doors down, vice president of the HOA, and self-appointed queen of yard beautification. You know the type. She's the reason nobody parks too close to the sidewalk. She's the reason we all have matching mailboxes. And, get this, she treats the easement like her personal landfill, dragging bags of trimmings and clippings wherever she pleases. Rules be damned. But with her on the board, things get complicated. I snapped some photos, made sure the timestamp was clear, then grabbed my rake and carefully pulled that pile away from my fence, dousing what was left with dirt until it stopped smoldering. I wasn't even angry, not yet, just frustrated. I know fire, I respect it, and I've seen what happens when people get careless. That night, still shaking my head, I walked over to Karen's white Subaru in the driveway, faint music drifting out her kitchen window, and she opens the door, gardening gloves on, iced tea in hand, looking at me like she's already got somewhere better to be. Oh, hey, Daniel. Everything okay? Like she can't imagine. What would bring me by? I kept it calm, I really did. Karen, did you burn some leaves out behind the fence this morning? She blinks, then gives this little laugh, like I'm the world's most dramatic neighbor. You mean the easement? I was just cleaning up. City never handles that strip, and we can't afford landscapers. Someone's got to do it. I always do. I try to reason with her. But burning this time of year, you know how risky that is. And she rolls her eyes. Don't be so dramatic. It was just a little pile, Daniel. You act like I built a bonfire under your porch. And with a tight smile, she closes the door. I walk home, fuming. It's not even the dismissal, it's the arrogance, as if 12 years in the neighborhood makes her immune to basic common sense. Or, I don't know the law. I wasn't looking for a fight, but I also wasn't about to let someone else's laziness burn my house down. So, I dug out my old folders, fire risk maps, HOA bylaws, city codes. I scanned the photos, logged everything, just in case. The next morning, I installed a security camera on the back of my house, angled right at the easement. Not because I expected fireworks, but because sometimes you have to protect yourself from your own neighbors. For about a week, nothing happened. I started to think maybe my warning worked. Then, 8th morning, camera catches a flicker. Karen again, this time just dumping a fresh bag of leaves, no burn, but I knew it was only a matter of time. She'd made it a habit, out there Tuesdays and Thursdays. Sun hat flopping, pink gloves flashing, tossing piles of dead branches and leaves, sometimes with a wheelbarrow, sometimes by hand, leaving trails of debris like some kind of suburban wildfire fairy. And sometimes, she'd check over her shoulder, strike a match, and toss it right in. No water, no hose, no plan. Just a flick and a shrug. I knew better than to confront her again. I tried the official route, emailed the HOA, attached screenshots, cited every rule, referenced the county's fire advisory. The reply I got, well, let's just say it didn't help my blood pressure. Board members may conduct basic upkeep of easement zones. Ms. Carson is a long-standing member and has historically maintained this section with the HOA's implicit support. If I had a nickel for Every time someone in power wrote historically maintained to excuse a mess, I'd have enough to pay for a real landscaper myself. But the thing about living under an HOA, especially like Karen on the board, you can't just go to war. They've got the power to fine you for mailbox height or your grass being a half-inch too long. So I played the long game, upgraded my cameras, more footage, more documentation, just in case. Then something shifted. It wasn't just me anymore. A neighbor, Emily, neighborhood mom, her kid played near the park, knocked on my door, worried because her son had smelled smoke by the trail. She'd stomped out a burning patch herself. I brought her in, showed her the footage, and for the first time, I felt like I wasn't alone in this. Emily promised to talk to other parents, other neighbors, just quietly. Maybe, if enough people saw the pattern, we could get somewhere. At the next HOA meeting, I stood up, binder in hand, footage on my phone, and laid it all out. Photos, videos, references. I called out Karen by name. I mean, what else was there to do? You could have heard a pin drop, except for Karen, who just laughed it off, claiming community service, saying she had a bucket and shovel, she didn't, and acting like I was the one out of line. Even with Emily backing me up, telling them she'd stomped out one of Karen's fires herself, worried for her kid, the board closed ranks. No disciplinary action at this time. And Karen, standing there, just smirked and said, "Guess we'll wish someone had a hose." Ready, huh? I went home, exhausted, but something hardened in me. No more playing nice. The next day, I filed a formal notice with the HOA and a duplicate to the city, with every photo, every timestamp, every code. That's when Karen and Greg, her board buddy, came strutting up my sidewalk, arms crossed, acting like I was the criminal. "Your camera's making neighbors uncomfortable," Greg said. I told him, if someone's uncomfortable being recorded breaking the law, maybe they shouldn't do it. Karen just laughed. "Go ahead, file your little complaint." She genuinely believed nothing could touch her. 3 days later, Saturday morning, I catch her on camera again. Same routine, same leaf pile, but this time she actually looks up, smiles, and waves at my camera after lighting the match. That was the moment I realized she was daring me, and that maybe, just maybe, I needed to go over her head. I sent everything to the county fire department anonymously, knowing full well the HOA would twist it if they found out it was me. But Karen? She kept pushing. The next day, she hosts a brunch. HOA types, mimosas, jazz, you name it. And right around noon, smoke starts drifting through my fence again, thicker this time, wind blowing straight at my yard. I grabbed the hose, sprayed down everything, shouted at her to put it out, and she just sauntered over, mimosa in hand, saying, "Relax, Daniel, it's under control." There's no control when the wind's up and the ground's this dry. A few hours later, sirens echoed down the road, but not for us, not yet. It all came to a head on a dry Tuesday. Wind gusts, smoke suddenly pouring through my yard, and that's when I saw it. Real flames, bigger than any before, chewing up not just leaves, but branches, even an old pallet. I tried to fight it with my hose, but it was too late. Embers jumped the fence, set my neighbor's flower bed on fire. I called 911, heart pounding. By the time the first fire engine pulled up, it was a full-on brush fire. Flames tore through the footpath, lit up the park, turned picnic tables and the playground to ash. I saw Karen then, mascara streaked down, her face, running barefoot across her yard, screaming as her own hedges burned. There was no sweet justice in that, just a kind of hollow ache. The fire marshal came after sunset. Heavy boots and tired eyes. "You Daniel Cole?" he asked. "You the one who sent in those reports?" I nodded. He said, "Good instincts. If you hadn't documented this, we'd be having a much uglier conversation right now." And that's when it all flipped. Sheriff's deputies showed up, asked for my footage, my logs, my emails. They watched Karen on camera, watched the matches, the flames. The way the board had ignored every warning. They opened an arson investigation. The HOA, their official email to the neighborhood said nothing. "We remind residents not to speculate." No apology. No mention of Karen. But the neighborhood knew. People whispered. People remembered who had spoken up and who had called me dramatic. When Emily showed up with 24 signatures and asked me to help lead a neighborhood coalition, Something in me finally let go of the fear I'd been carrying since the first leaf burned. Karen resigned. The insurance company denied the HOA's claim, citing gross negligence. Lawsuits followed, not by me, but by neighbors whose homes got scorched. Greg and Dana, the secretary, both quit the board in quiet disgrace. Karen got fined for illegal burning and public endangerment. She moved out 2 months later, never looking up as the moving van rolled away. But the craziest part? After all that, people I barely knew started knocking on my door. Neighbors I'd only waved to at the mailbox. People who'd once rolled their eyes at my extra garden hose. Now apologized, brought baked goods, thanked me for standing up. Emily, now elected president of the new board, started a real safety committee, and I found myself at the heart of a community for the first time. Not just a managed neighborhood, but a real one. We rebuilt the park, this time with fire-resistant plants, native trees, solar lights, a real fire break, and a stone ring at the center for people to gather and remember. The first day it reopened, a little girl handed me a drawing of her house, a fire truck, and stick figures holding hands in front of a brand new park. I almost lost it right there. And maybe that's the lesson. Authority only means something if it's earned, if it's used to protect, not to control. You can't legislate compassion, but you can model it. After all the smoke cleared, after the last embers died out, we had a choice: rebuild what was lost or build something better. We chose better. So here's what I want to know. Would you have done what I did? Would you risk becoming the neighborhood outcast to keep your home, your community safe? Or do you think sometimes it's easier to let someone else fight the fire? Drop your story, your thoughts on justice, right down in the comments. Let's talk about what real responsibility looks like, not just on paper, but when the heat's on. And if you ever spot smoke on your fence line, remember, sometimes it takes one stubborn neighbor to wake up a whole community.